Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to finally another video of Sunday Social. And I've decided to pre record this instead of doing it live because I have so much to say. I wanted to make sure I got everything in without any interruptions as far as comments go, because I get off track. If I see a comment, I feel like I gotta answer it right then or acknowledge it and read it, and then my mind just goes everywhere. So I wanted to just make sure that I got this completely with distraction free, that I made this video distraction free. But there will be a time to address questions, and maybe we'll do a live stream in response to this video. But so, welcome to Day to Day Social Work. I'm Ashley. I am over Day to Day Social Work. I started Day to Day Social Work in 2015. And of course, as most of you know, I primarily provide tutoring services for our colleagues across the country and some internationally to help pass the license exam in social work on the master's and bachelor's level, as well as now, more so than not, clinical level. So, welcome and let's start. So, someone asked me to make a video about all of the current events. We know that COVID-19 is still here, and that's something that we're still dealing with. But then now we have the current events with the riots, the police killings, and the protesting and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought about making a video earlier on, but then I was like, no, because I don't want to put too much of my personal thoughts and stuff like that into the video. But then I was like, oh, I am a social worker and I do have a little platform. And so I was like, maybe I will. But then I kind of got exhausted from looking at all the videos and stuff. So I was like, I just won't. But then somebody inboxed me on Instagram on the Day to Day Social Work page and asked me to make a video. So I was like, maybe people are looking for me to say something. And I don't want you to think, as a social worker or as a Black person or as an ally of Black people or a friend of Black people, that you have to make a video or make some loud statement, because it is difficult. It's great if you do, but even a lot of my Black friends and family, we're not, vocal on social media, but we are taking in everything and consuming everything, and we are definitely aware of what's going on. It's just some of us feel hopeless and helpless, and we don't really know what to say, or, social media is not our thing. I don't really post a lot on social media in my personal life. Most of my postings are day-to-day social work postings on my professional page. So it's a difficult time right now in the country, and I just decided that, hey, maybe I should make a statement, and not necessarily a statement, but a video, just a conversation like we always have, discussing what's going on. And like I said, I wanted to record this because I also want to make sure that I am saying things that are clear and that are not offensive to anybody, Black or white or any other race. And so the main thing I want to say right now, though, is that as a social worker, and this is a social work video, it's a social work channel, so I'm trying not to be necessarily Ashley the person, but Ashley the social worker and Ashley the person. But as a social worker, you have to become comfortable talking about things that you don't normally talk about, or that most people don't normally talk about, and race is one of those things. As a younger professional social worker, talking about sex was something that I was very uncomfortable talking about. Talking about self-harm was something I was uncomfortable talking about, because we know that we work with people in different demographics and different areas. We know that we have to talk about, depending on where you're working and what demographic you're working with, sex or drugs or rape or self-harm and that kind of thing. And race is one of those things that we kind of are able to skirt around for the most part, but then we have things like this that have been going on that kind of get brought to the forefront of everybody's attention, and we have to be comfortable, whether you're Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, all of us social workers, because we are a very diverse group of people. We have to be comfortable with talking about everything. So buckle up and let's get to it. And I'm very comfortable talking about race because I've talked about it, of course, with family and friends, colleagues of different races, and so it's just easy for me to talk about a lot of stuff because of my experience as a social worker. So, just a disclaimer, excuse me. This is not. I'm going to tell you what this is not, and I'm going to tell you what this is. This is not a political video. It's not a video to bash any one race. It's not a video to discuss religion and politics and all that kind of stuff. This is a social work video. This is a people video. This is not geared towards black people. It's not geared towards white people. It's not geared towards any specific race. It's geared towards all of us as social workers and anybody else that happens to come across this video. So, with that being said, a lot of this is going to be my thoughts, my opinions. This is not law. I always say that. This is not something that is me trying to influence people to think a certain way or anything like that. I was asked to make a video, and I decided to do so because I already had the thought in my mind, but then I just got that extra push. Just quick updates for day-to-day social work. I know I haven't been as active over the last few weeks. I've been part-time at work, and so I've been working on a week and working off a week. And I've just been enjoying the time. I've been having some anxiety, not necessarily about COVID-19, but just life in general. So I've been missing a little bit, but, hopefully I'm going to get a little more active with posting and stuff like that. So, also what this video is, I like to kind of give you an outline of what I'm going to talk about so you kind of know. So I've been taking notes like forever. I got pages. I don't know how long this video will be, but hopefully you'll stick around because I do have some stuff to say. But we're going to talk about, there are going to be some quotes in this video from people that I think are relevant quotes. I'm going to give you some personal examples of my experience with race. And it's not necessarily any attacks against me or anything like that, but just my experience with race and how, I see race. I'm also going to talk about how I'm aware of my race daily as a black woman. I'm going to talk very briefly on the protests and all the stuff that's going on right now because I don't have a final thought on all of that stuff because it's still going on, and I probably will never have a final thought on it. But we're going to talk about that as well as, the police brutality and killings that's been going on, recently, although, of course, they've been going on for a very long time. I'm also going to paint a picture for you as a social worker. I'm going to talk about quotes, like I said. We're going to talk about what our allies can do. And when I say our allies, I'm saying black people's allies. And it's not a black and white thing. It's black, white, Asian, Hispanic. I'm speaking from the black perspective in current events. So I don't want to leave anybody out, but I'm just going to speak about what people who care about black lives, because black lives matter. Also saying that black lives matter, period. If anybody doesn't agree with that, I'm sorry that you don't, but that's how I feel. To the people who say that all lives matter, yes, all lives do matter. That is a true statement too, period. But black lives matter as well, and that's period. Like that's just what it is. And so I don't understand when people get upset when people say that black lives matter, because they do. We do. And yes, all lives do matter, but if our black lives don't matter to a lot of people, then all lives don't matter. And that's just, so you go back and forth with people about that statement. But yes, Black Lives Matter, period. I used to say, oh, they should have named the movement Black Lives Matter too, but that's kind of like, that's redundant. Like, we know that Black Lives Matter, so we shouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter too, because then there would be something to say about that. But anyway, so Black Lives Matter, and once all Black lives actually matter, all lives will matter, and all lives do matter too. Okay, enough of that, because we could go on and on about that. But anyway, and I'm going to talk about social workers and our responsibilities to the profession when it comes to social injustice, and we're going to look at the code of ethics, because I want to give you factual information and not just my thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to start this with a quote from James Baldwin. And if you've been active on social media for any amount of time, you've probably seen this quote here recently, because a lot of people have been posting it, but maybe you haven't seen it. So, James Baldwin was a novelist, a playwright, an essayist, poet, and activist. And in 1961, he was quoted, or said a quote rather, to be Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. And honestly, in my opinion, that is true. And to be a black person in this country, and if you are conscious, not necessarily woke as they call it, but if you are just conscious and you just look around you and you see what's going on, it is like you are in a rage all the time because there's always something going on. This video is not a pity party. It's not to make anybody a victim. It's not to make me a victim or anything like that. But I'm just speaking as a professional to professionals. You know, that's true. Like, when I scroll social media, even before all of this happened, it is like you're in a rage when you see the stuff that happens, when you see these videos, when you see these comments, when you see all of the stuff that you see related to how people feel and think and treat black people. And if you are conscious and you see this, it is like you are in a rage all the time. But if you are just willy-nilly and you're not conscious and you're just going through life, which some people are, some black people are, they don't see that. And one example that reminds me of, when I was in undergrad, I had a sociology professor. Professor. He was from Kenya. He was a black man, and this was back in like 2009. So this was like 11 years ago. He was a sociology professor, and like I said, he was from Kenya. He was here teaching at the university, and he told me that he did not see racism. He was never offended or attacked or anything. And some black people, or I would say a lot of black people, probably do go through life and nobody is being racist towards them directly, or nobody is calling them any names or doing anything. And so I go throughout most of my days and I don't feel any kind of attacks or anything like that. And so but I am aware of what's going on around me. So even though he may not have had any kind of personal attacks, but just talking to him, he made it seem like he did not see the racism that was happening in the country. And it wasn't as prevalent back then. It wasn't as in your face back then. It was very subtle. And it was 2009. So this is like right after President Obama started being president, and I think that after his presidency started was when a lot of all of these tensions started happening. But he said that he just didn't see it. He didn't see it. It didn't happen to him, and he just did not see it. And I'm like, I don't know if it's because he's from another country and maybe it's different, or maybe he just never experienced it, or he just was not conscious to the fact that things were happening. But some people are not conscious to the fact that things are happening. Black people. Or because it doesn't directly affect them. Maybe they've moved up in social status or class or whatever, and they don't see the issues because it doesn't directly affect them. But even if they don't directly affect you and you're conscious, you see it happening to other people, and it's almost inevitable. Like, I think a lot of black people think, am I next? Is this going to happen to me? Is somebody going to look at me this way? And that's the thing that I think a lot of us are kind of living with. So I just wanted to say that quote as kind of like a backdrop for this. It is to be black in this country and to be conscious. It's like you're almost in a rage all the time. Okay, so, and as I get through this, because like I said, I have an outline with this, but it's so much stuff that I don't know if the structure is going to flow like I want it to, but we're going to just go with it. So, again, this is a social work video, but it is going to include some of my personal experience and my personal thoughts This is not anything to offend anybody or make anybody feel bad. We are all allies. To me, in my mind, in my optimistic mind, which y'all know that I have, um, no social worker is racist in my mind. Because we're social workers. Like, we're here for people, for empowerment of the people, to help them become self-sufficient. We're all about self-determination. We are against injustice. We are just the people who help the people help themselves. So in my optimistic mind, I don't know a racist social worker, and I feel like if someone is racist or prejudiced, that you really shouldn't be a social worker if you can't be teachable and learn and change your mindset, because we come across all different people, all different races, all different sexes, genders, backgrounds, religions, and all that, and we can't be judgmental and we can't be discriminatory against people. So, in my mind, no social worker is racist. But I'm just going to tell you some of my personal experiences with race. So, the most recent thing that I can think of is from Christmas Day 2019. And again, I haven't been attacked with any racial attacks or anything like that. Again, this is just my experiences with race and how I see things. So it was Christmas Day, and my uncle, who lives close by, I don't really see him a lot since I've been an adult, but I've been to his house a few years ago for Thanksgiving. He invited me over to his house for dinner, and I went. And I've been to his house maybe one other time, maybe 2 years ago for Christmas. But I don't go to see him often, and he lives in this rural area where it's a lot of back roads and turns and stuff. And if you don't go there often, you don't really remember how to get there. It's not on like a main highway or an exit or a main road. So I decided last minute that I was going to go and see him on Christmas, him and his wife. And so he gave me his address, and I start driving to go there. So I get there and I start seeing, through all the back roads, and it was dark, through all the back roads and darkness, I start seeing familiar things once I got into his subdivision. So I'm like, okay, now I know where I am. So I turned the GPS off, and I turned it off right when it told me that I had arrived. And so I thought that I knew which house was his, because like I said, I've been there before. I hadn't been there in a while, but I was pretty sure that I was in the right spot. So I get to the yard, and there's this big elaborate display of decorations and lights and all this stuff. And I was like, dang, Uncle Rick, they really did it up for Christmas this year. They had this big snowman in the yard and these reindeer and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, like, cool. They don't have any young children. I guess they have grandchildren. So I'm like, wow, okay. So I park the car, and I get out, and I see this family across the street, and they're out the window looking at me, or out the screen door looking at me. And I'm like, okay. And it was around like 7 or 8, and in December in South Carolina, it's dark at that time. So I get out the car, and it's like 3 of them looking at me out the window, and I'm like, okay. So I'm minding my business, and I get out. I go under the carport to the porch, and then there's this gate that you have to open in order to get on the porch. And I'm like, okay. So I don't recall the gate being there. I don't even think that I even thought about the gate actually when I was there. But so I'm like, okay. So I get there. There's a note on the door that there are gun owners there, or that this home is armed or whatever. So I'm like, okay, my Uncle Rick is probably somebody who would be a gun owner, whatever. So I knock on the door, and there's this voice that comes on the intercom, and they're like, can I help you? And at that moment, I realized I was at the wrong house. So I'm like, oh, shoot. This is probably why these people are looking at me. And they were white people. They were looking at me like out the window, like 3 of them just staring at me. I'm like, oh, shoot. So I'm like, in the moment, I'm like, is this, I said my uncle's first and last name, and they were like, no, this is not his house, you have the wrong house. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And I just left. So I'm hurrying up, getting in my car, because in that moment, I thought about this kid named Brennan Walker, who, if you may have heard the story, he went to a neighbor's house or somebody's house in a neighborhood, and I can't remember what state it was, but he went and he was looking for directions to school because he missed his school bus. And the man that lived there, he came out the house with a shotgun and shot at this child. He was 14 at the time, I think. And the little boy just like takes off running, and the man was shooting at him as he was running off. And it turned out that he was just looking for directions to school because he missed the school bus. And I don't know if he should know the directions to school because it's his school, or I don't know all of that. All I know is this child was at the wrong house, not necessarily the wrong house, but obviously the wrong house. But he was lost. He was looking for directions, and he got shot at. And most people think it was racial. And the man said that he thought that the little boy was trying to break in the house and all this stuff. And who knows what people were really thinking and all that stuff. I'm not here to dispute that. But that's what it made me think about. Was I was just a happy young lady going to see her uncle, and I ended up at the wrong house. And there's a note that's saying that this is a gun owner's house, and then I could have been shot just because I'm innocently going to see my uncle on Christmas night. Like, and I was like, dang. I thought about that for a couple days. I'm like, could I have been shot at or shot just because I was at the wrong house by accident, And I don't know if it was, if I don't know, but that's how I think. That's how I thought, and I didn't like it. And I didn't like that I thought that way. But, so it ended up being my uncle's house was like literally right next door. And so I went to my uncle's house and I told him what happened. And I don't know why I'm feeling like this because I didn't think that this would happen. But anyway, so I told my uncle what happened, and he was like, well, he knows who I am. He's my neighbor, and we talk and all this other stuff. And it's, I don't know. But anyway, so that's one thing. So I just thought that things could have happened differently. And I thought about that little boy because, if you're just going through life and you're just being you and you just are looking for directions or happen to be at the wrong house, having the skin, you could possibly be shot at because you're seen as a threat. But anyway, so then, just some other minor examples. I remember going to Myrtle Beach one year with my family, and we were at the boardwalk, and these kids came up to my brother. My brother, he'll be 30 next month. Wow, he'll be 30. My little brother will be 30. And we were just walking on the boardwalk, and these two kids came up to him, like randomly out of nowhere, and asked him if he had some weed to sell. And these were two white kids. And I'm like, I was so offended. I'm like, why would you come up to us randomly out of everybody out here and ask my brother if he has weed to sell? And I was really offended by that. And, that's one small example. And my dad used to tell my brother, I remember growing up, my dad used to tell my brother, like, when we would go in the grocery store or any store, like, never put your hands in your pockets. You don't want anybody to think that you're stealing and, that kind of thing. So that just stuck with me for a long time. And my brother, anytime we'd go to the store, he wouldn't make sure he didn't put his hands in his pockets. And so it's sad. And my brother is a very quiet man. He's a quiet guy. He stays to himself. He doesn't get into anything. He goes to work, he goes home, and that's pretty much it. But my brother is a homebody. He's a mama's boy. He's quiet, like I said. He's a grown man. He's my little brother, but he's still my little brother to me. But, sometimes he walks with his head down, and I don't like that. Like, I always tell him, you walk with your head up. And I can only imagine what it's like being him. But anyway, so I'm trying not to make this too personal, but I just want to preface all of this by giving y'all some of my personal experiences with race. Another thing is, so I worked with this lady one time when I worked at the police department. She was one of the clerical people, and this was like in 2015 when there were, of course, a lot of police shootings then too. And we were having discussion about race. Me, her, and my partner, who I worked with at the time, she's Cuban. This lady was white, and I'm black. So it's a diverse conversation. And I remember her telling me that I'm different, that I'm not like everyone else because I'm educated and because I'm professional and because I speak proper English. She said this to me. She said, "You're different." And I'm not different. I'm not any different than there are different levels or statuses amongst all races. For her to tell me that I'm different because I'm educated and because that was her main thing, was because I'm educated and I have a professional job and all this stuff. For her to tell me that, it was an insult to me that she would say that, because it makes it seem like everybody else, every other race, they're all equal, and that's not true. Every race has different socioeconomic statuses. Every race has people that are educated and some are not educated. Every race has people that have professional jobs. Some people are blue collar, some people are white collar. Every race has every race has difference. I mean, and this is stuff that y'all know as social workers. I'm just saying, you know. So I'm just like, every race is different. Every race has different people of different statuses. And so I was offended when she said that, because I'm not different. I'm black first. I'm a black woman first. And then I'm educated. Then, you know, whatever my career is and all this other stuff. And y'all know, if y'all watch my videos, I don't even know where my degrees are. They're in boxes somewhere. I won't say I could care less about my education, because I paid a lot for it. I did a lot of work, a lot of essays, research, reading, and all this other stuff. But, you know, it's different. It's different for me as far as how I see education and careers and stuff like that. I've just done what I needed to do to get where I want to be. And, you know, every race has people who are motivated like that and determined like that. And then you have some people within every race who are not. And everybody is not afforded the same opportunities and all that kind of stuff. So I really felt some kind of way that she would tell me that I'm different because I'm educated. But every day I'm a black woman, and every day I am aware of my blackness. And in any social situation, and a lot of black people aren't really that aware. They don't think about their race all the time. And I don't think about mine all the time, but in certain situations I do, and I am aware. So I felt some kind of way. And then lastly, let's see. In high school, my best friend was telling me about this girl that we were friends with. She worked with the girl at our little high school job, or their high school job. And she was telling me, my best friend she has a very diverse group of friends. Like, she has Hispanic friends, white friends, black friends. She has a very diverse group of friends. Unfortunately, my group of friends are not that diverse, and it's not on purpose or anything. Most of my friends are black. I do have a couple white friends that I'm actually friends with. Of course, I have associates and stuff like that, but that I'm actually friends with, that I check in on and talk to all the time, and I love seeing their babies' pictures and seeing their kids and that kind of stuff. I don't have a very, very diverse group of friends, unfortunately. But it's no big problem if you don't have a lot of friends who are of a different race and that kind of thing. It's good if you do, but if it just didn't fall that way and you didn't do it on purpose, then, you know, I don't think it's a huge deal. But I do think that it's good to have people of different backgrounds as your actual friends that you can talk to and have conversations with. And that's something that, as an older person in my early 30s, I'm not looking to make any new real friends like that anyway. Like, people that I don't mind being vulnerable with and sharing my life with and stuff like that. I don't have a lot of desire, whether you black, white, or anything else. So my friend group is set. Like, my actual friend group is set. And I only have about 5 actual real friends anyway. And of those 5, I would say I maybe have 1 or 2 white friends. The other 3 are black. But anyway, so she was telling me that this girl we went to high school with her, she's white, that she was friends with her and that she could come over to her house but her family didn't like black people, but because she was a black girl, it was okay for her to come over. And so that didn't sit well with me. And people that tell you that you're acting white or you sound white, or because if you're a black person, and that's something that a lot of black people use against other black people. They will tell you that. Like, I grew up with people telling me that I'm acting white or I sound white because I didn't speak like everybody else, and that was offensive to me too. So it's not just race things from other races, it's race things from your own race too. I'm just being 100% honest with you with my experiences. But anyway, so I mean, I had family members who would say, "Oh, you talk white and you acting white," and I'm like, it's so annoying. It is so annoying, and whatever. But anyway, so that's that. Now, those are just some examples of my own personal things with race. So when I talk about being aware of being black daily, not that I'm just going out and looking for something to happen to me or somebody white to feel a way about me or anything like that, because that's definitely not the case. But I am aware of my blackness, and I talk about this with my supervisor, my clinical supervisor, for my hours, which I'm only 18 hours away from my 100 hours before I can take the exam. And I'll be in the boat with everybody else studying for the exam and being anxious about passing it, and being able to go into clinical practice, independent practice, and stuff like that. But we talk about this kind of stuff too, and it's good if you are in supervision to make sure that you talk about race with your clinical supervisor, especially if you feel uncomfortable with it. Just so that y'all can start opening up and discussing how you feel and not being judged, because your clinical social work supervisor is not going to judge you, and they're going to be open to what you have to say and helping you see things from a different perspective. And that's what it's about. It's about us learning things from other people's perspectives other than our own. Let's see. And I have another story, but I'll probably keep it till later because I don't want this video to be super, super long. It's probably going to be about 2 hours, but I'll leave that for later. But like I said, you have the typical things where you go out into the store and you feel like somebody is watching you. I know for me personally, I used to be where if I went into like a convenience store or something like that and I didn't buy anything, like I might have went in there for something specific and they didn't have it and I just didn't buy anything, so I would just leave out. I used to be like, dang, I wonder if they're thinking that I've stolen something because I'm black. This is honestly how I think. Now that I'm older, I don't necessarily think that way because I could care less. I know I'm not in there stealing anything. And if I don't see what I came in there to get, I'm just leaving, whatever. But it used to be on my mind a lot, like, dang, I feel like I have to buy something because if I don't, they're going to think that I stole something. And, that's not a good way to think or to live. Another thing, so with the COVID-19 thing that's going on, I ordered 15 masks from one of my friends who sews masks, and she had different prints. And the prints were solid red, solid black, dinosaur print. She had like a plaid red and white print. She had a plaid gray and white print. And so she had like a certain number of each kind. And so I bought 15 of them, and they were for me, my mom, my grandmother, my brother, my sister, my aunt, my uncle, and my little cousins, who are 3 black boys. They're teenagers, and then one is like, he's a little kid, he's like 9. But she had a certain amount of each print, and I had to make sure that as I was allocating these out, or separating these out to whoever was going to get whichever print, that I didn't get the solid black or the solid red print for my little cousins who are teenagers, because they are black boys. And the first thing that came to my mind was they can't have a solid red mask, and they can't have a solid black mask because they're older now, they're growing, they have facial hair. I'm like, y'all got facial. I couldn't believe it. The last time I went to see them, they had facial hair. I'm like, y'all have facial hair? Their little voices are getting deeper, they're getting taller, they play sports and stuff like that, but they are so childish. Like, they're little kids. They're teenagers, of course, but they stay at home. They play on their little Xbox or PlayStations or whatever they play. You know, they play sports. They go to practice and stuff like that. They don't get into anything. They're good kids, which we shouldn't have to say this, you know, but this is the truth. They're good kids, and it's almost like we have to preface things that we say about young black boys by saying how good they are, because if they're not good, then they might deserve what they get. But anyway, so they're good kids, and I'm like, I don't want them having a solid red mask because you know, they may already appear to be threatening because of their physical appearance to some people, and for them to have a solid red mask, people might associate that with a gang, and I don't want them to have that target on them. Or to have a solid black mask, people might think that if they wear that mask into the store, that they're going to go and rob the store. So I tried to get the masks that were the dinosaur print. What teenage boy wants to wear a dinosaur print mask, right? Or the one that was plaid and white, because it wasn't kitty and it wasn't solid and, you know, a color that could be affiliated with the gang or anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get them these kinds because they are less threatening masks. I mean, honestly, I thought that I had to think that way. I had to think that way because I don't want them having any additional thing about them other than their black skin and their height and their appearance to make them seem threatening. And that's sad. Oh God, that's sad. But that's how I thought, and that's how I have to think to protect my family. So that's that. Let's see. And then lastly, you know, another thing is like hair. So hair in the black community is a huge thing. And you probably have seen this as a topic, you know, that you talk with your friends about or whatever. So, you know, we know that not everybody, but a lot of black people's hair is naturally thick and kinky or coily or curly. And that's how it grows naturally. Like when I don't straighten my hair is not, it's not thick. Like my hair is natural. I haven't had a perm or anything in like 10 or 11 years. So I straighten it a lot just because it's easier to manage and maintain. But when I don't straighten it and I just wash it and it's just in its natural state, it's different textures all over. It's tightly coiled at this back part, and then it's loosely wavy on the top, and it's just different patterns, textures, and stuff like that. So, you know, we all know that we've had to assimilate to a certain degree to work in certain spaces, as well as people who have locks, their hair in locks, or braids and stuff like that. And so a lot of times you will see black women with straight hair, a lot of times, because sometimes it's just our preference. And then sometimes it's because we have to do that in order to be professional or fit in. So it wasn't until I started working here at the current job that I work for that I felt comfortable wearing my hair in its natural state. Like wearing natural styles, braid outs, bantu knot outs, twist outs, and braids and stuff like that, because I work from home. That was really the main reason. I'm like, oh, I work from home, so now I can play with my hair and experiment with my hair and not have to straighten it all the time and put all this heat in it and stuff like that. But I do prefer my hair straight most of the time because it's easier to manage. Not saying that, and when I say that, it's not a hassle for me. It is for some other people, but for me, it's more so if I do my hair, it has to be a braid out or something, and I have to braid it every single night so that it looks like something in the morning. Because if I wear it natural and I don't do anything to it at night, it will be a complete mess the next day. So it's kind of like, you know, I just prefer to wear it straight. But, you know, working from home, and then working at a very diverse place of employment, I feel more comfortable wearing my hair natural or braids or whatever. And it's like, okay, you know, I can do what I want to do with my hair. So that's something that we have to think about. Okay, so most of this video has been about me, and I just want to just welcome you into my life a little bit, just as a preference. Not a preference, but as a preface to all of everything else. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the protests and everything that's going on very briefly, because I don't want to put, like I said, my influence or my opinion about everything that's going on anybody, or I don't want you to think that I'm trying to make you think a certain kind of way. But so we know about George Floyd, the man that was killed by a police officer on, I think it was Monday of this week in Minneapolis. And, you know, that ignited all of these protests across the country, in Minnesota, in Washington, D.C., in California, Los Angeles, California. You have Atlanta, Georgia. You have Washington, D.C. You have Texas. Like, all these places are protesting. And if you've been on social media, you've seen everything that's going on. And you look at these things from different lenses. My lenses are as a black person, as a black woman, as a social worker, as a person, period, as a human being, minus race, minus gender, minus profession. And so you may look at it with the lens of a white person, a white female. You may look at it as a social worker or just a human being. Everybody looks at all of these things from different lenses and different points of views and perspectives. And that's what's good about our country, is that we are diverse and that we see things from different points of view, and that it's good for us to come together and have these conversations so that we can share our points of view to people who are open-minded and you know, be vulnerable with people who may potentially be allies. And so we know about George Floyd. We may or may not know about Breonna Taylor, who was a black woman that was killed in her home by the police. I believe that they had the wrong house and they did a no-knock warrant or something like that. She was an EMT professional, and it was madness. And then, of course, Ahmaud Arbery was also killed, not by the police, but by other citizens. And you have a thing of police killings, and you have a thing of white people killing black people in these three examples. And there's a difference, because we know, and I'm going to say this because it's true, not all white people are bad people, just like not all black people are bad people. That is common sense. Everybody should know that. Everybody should know that. Everyone with a brain should know that not all white people are bad and not all black people are bad. People of different races and backgrounds have good and bad people. We know that. Just like all police officers are not bad. We know that. I worked at a police department, as you all may know if you followed me for any amount of time. And I've said over and over that working at the police office was like my favorite job. It was my best job because it was so neat to see things behind the scenes, to see how things work, to see, you know, why certain things are done a certain way, to see what is allowed and what's not allowed, to see how investigations are done, to see how undercover work is done, to see how SWAT teams operate, to see how policies are made and laws are made, to see all of this stuff. And I was just a victim advocate, and I just learned a whole lot as a social worker and as a victim advocate and as a citizen, a civilian citizen, how things work in law enforcement at that particular agency. So we know that not in different groups of people in different areas, everybody has good and bad people, and that's common knowledge, common sense. But when you have all this stuff brought to the forefront, you have protests, you have looting, you have rioting. And I don't agree with the looting. I agree with peaceful protesting. I agree with letting your voice be heard in different ways. I definitely don't agree with violence. I don't agree with violence from anybody. Um, with that being said, I am a black person first. And I understand why certain things are going on the way that they are. And just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean that I don't understand why it's happening. And I can't tell people how to feel. Like I said, every group of people have different people at different levels of status, socioeconomic status, and that kind of thing. So the things that, and everybody has different perspectives on things. The things that are issues for me as an individual person may not be the same things that are issues for someone else that looks like me, that's a woman like me, that may not have different things afforded to them like me. And so, even though I'm a black woman and I have black male members of my family and friends, I don't understand what it's like to be a black man. I never will. I kind of have an understanding because, like I said, I'm black and I have black family and I kind of see what they go through. But to actually walk in their skin and in their body and to see, I know how I feel when I go in the store and I don't buy anything, but I don't know how that feels for a black man. And I would never tell someone how to feel or how to voice their hurt or their pain and try to tell them that they should or shouldn't do stuff this kind of way because I don't know how they manifest what they feel. All I can do is be a support. So even though I'm black and I have certain access or knowledge to how black people feel, I'm still not a black man. Just like you can be white and you can be a white woman, and just because both of us are women, I'm a black woman, you're a white woman, you will never know how I feel, I will never know how you feel, but I can help you understand how I feel and why I decide to do things a certain way. And that's what it's about. Having conversations, changing perspectives, or at least being open to seeing the other person's perspective. So I can't tell people how to express their hurt and their pain. I might not agree with, I might not go, well, I'm not gonna say I might not, I won't go and burn up a building or burn up a car or whatever, but that doesn't mean that somebody else wouldn't, of course, and that's how they express how they feel. But I also can't say what I would or wouldn't do if this was my family member. I don't know. You don't know until you're put in a situation, and that's why we can't judge. It's just like the basis of social work. We work with people who are different in different places of their lives, different stages of their lives. And we can't say what we would do if we were married, our husband left us with 3 kids, we were a stay-at-home mom, we didn't prepare, we didn't have any funding of our own, we didn't have any money of our own, we depended solely on our husband, he left us, the house went into foreclosure, and now we're homeless, we're living on the street with our 3 kids, literally living on the street, and we don't have any means, and we don't know if a person like that would go into a store and steal food for their family to feed their kids, even if it's just snack cakes or lunch meat or whatever. We don't know what they would do, and we can't judge them because they did it. We, as social workers, we can only help them access resources to what they need to get some kind of self-sufficiency and stability. So I can't judge a person who, in that exact scenario, who went and stole something, and say, well, I wouldn't do that, I would have just went to the food pantry or whatever. We can't say that. Like, we don't know if we would do something like that in that situation. We don't know that the lady who lives at the shelter, who was selling herself to get money for food, clothes, whatever, blah 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 blah, we don't know that we wouldn't do that in that situation. Like, we don't know that the man who lost his job, lost his car or whatever, we don't know that because he lost all of his stuff that he wouldn't go and, I'm just making stuff up off the top of my head, I don't even know, like whatever he decides to do, we don't know that we would not do that if we were in that situation. So as social workers, we are to be non-judgmental And we can't tell people how to feel. We can't tell a homeless person that they should have done this or they could have done that. They didn't do it. They're here now, and this is why we meet people where they are. And when it comes to these protests and stuff, even though a lot of us don't agree with how, I mean, if you're protesting for a cause, you can be loud, you can be boisterous, you can be whatever. But if you're just out breaking into stores, stealing stuff, that defeats the purpose. I don't agree with that. I never will. And that's not part of the plan, I don't think. So there's a lot of people that's just taking advantage of situations that is happening. I don't agree with that. So if you ever thought, what's your thoughts on that? I don't agree with all of that. I don't. But, as far as the anger and expressing it in certain different ways, people are different. They're going to express their anger, their hurt, their pain in different ways. And I can't judge them for it. And I don't know what I would do in the same situation. So that's that. Now, let me paint a picture for you. So let's say that you are, which is a very good possibility that some of you may be, and it's a very good possibility that some of you could possibly be in this scenario that I'm going to give. Let's say that you're a behavioral therapist, which some of you are, like I said, and some of you may become. And you're working with people with special needs at a group home, and you've been there for some years. You're a psychotherapist, a behavioral health therapist, or whatever. And you go to work. You love your job. You love what you do. You love helping people. You love trying to help people change or modify their behavior, your clients and stuff like that. You've grown close with your clients and stuff like that. So your client is 23 years old and is a male. Not really sure what the background is, but he is of color. And he is on the autism spectrum, and he goes missing from the group home. So you get there, you're like, oh shoot, such and such is gone. He's very low functioning. Even though he's 23 years old, he's probably childlike. He goes missing from the home, and you go to find him out in the neighborhood. It's not a busy place. It's just, a place, a homely neighborhood. So you go, and you try to go and get your client. So minutes, hours, whatever later, you find yourself lying on your back with your hands up as the police shoots you in your leg. And you don't know why, and the officer doesn't know why he shot you. And so this is what happened. You may have heard about this. I don't know if this man was a social worker, but he was a behavioral health therapist. They say that he's a social worker. His name is Charles Kinsey, and he was shot in the leg by an officer named Jonathan Aletta in North Miami, by the North Miami police officer, Jonathan Aletta, back in 2016. So you probably have heard the story or seen it, where the therapist is a black man, and the client was Arnaldo Rios Soto, and he was 23 years old at the time. He was on the autism spectrum, and he had wandered from the group home, and the therapist, Mr. Kinsey, went out to get him, and the police arrived. I don't know exactly what happened, so look it up, but I'm just going off of what I did find from my research. Supposedly the police officers were looking for an armed person, that was suicidal. And so, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, who reports this stuff? Like, because neither the therapist nor the client was armed. To my knowledge, the client was not suicidal. He was on the autism spectrum. And when they had this altercation, the client was playing with a toy truck in the road. And you can see video all on YouTube and, excuse me, on the internet. So I'm just wondering, like, who reports this stuff, that there's an armed person that's suicidal that the police has to go and look for? And I also wonder, is this stuff made up? Like, is this something that the police made up? Because who really calls and makes this stuff up when it's not true? So in the video, you can see the therapist talking to his client and telling the client to lay on his stomach, be calm. This is a low functioning person that's on the autism spectrum. He's 23 years old. He's playing with a toy truck in the middle of the road. The police have guns drawn on the therapist, and he's lying in the road with his hands up and trying to negotiate with the client. So when they asked the officer, or when Mr. Kinsey asked the officer why he shot him, the officer said, "I don't know." How much competence, like, or better yet, how incompetent are you as an officer sworn to protect, who's taken an oath, to tell a person that you shot that you don't know why you shot them? Obviously, this person is no threat. He's on his back. His hands are up. The man is shot in his leg. Let's see. So this officer was on a SWAT team. 3 shots were fired. One of them ended up hitting the therapist in the leg. They end up giving the officer a slap on the wrist. He says, or the police department said that they were trying to save the therapist from the patient. So he didn't get any jail time. He got 1 year administrative probation, 100 hours of community service, and had to write a 2,500 word essay on communication and weapons discharge. He was guilty of culpable negligence, which is a misdemeanor, which won't be on his criminal background. So I don't know about this officer. I didn't do any more research on him. I don't know if he had any prior stuff on his record, complaints or whatever. But if you're that kind of person, you don't need to be an officer. I mean, really, if you shoot somebody and you tell them you don't know why, and they're clearly not a threat, like, this is crazy. This therapist could have been killed. If this man, I mean, this is somebody that could be any of us, whether we're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. Any of us could be a person that's going out into the community to get our client who's low functioning on the autism spectrum, and we're perceived as threatening. And honestly, I don't see this happening to different people of different races. I don't, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, which I am. I don't see this happening to a white woman therapist. I don't see her having to lie on her back with her arms up, with being shot in her leg. I don't see it happening. It could happen. Anything is possible, but I just don't see it. So look that case up and just think about the stigma. Also, as we're speaking as social workers, think about the stigma this has surrounding mental illness. This is a 23-year-old low-functioning person on the autism spectrum playing in the road with a toy truck. And supposedly this person is armed and suicidal. Think about those words and how that looks to the general public who don't know about mental illness. Is this something where people will think that people on the autism spectrum are harmful to other people, or suicidal and that kind of thing? I mean, think about the stigma around this. So that's that. What next? I mean, it could happen to any of us, honestly. It could happen to any of us, black, white, or whatever. But just think about that. So then I thought about this quote from Breonna, the singer, which you may have heard because it was shared all over the internet too. So Breonna was awarded and acknowledged for her contributions to humanity, her humanitarian work this year. I think it was in February at the 2020 NAACP Image Award. She won the President's Award. And part of her speech was this. She said, "We can only fix this world together. We can't do it divided. I cannot emphasize that enough. We can't let the desensitivity seep in. If it's your problem, then it's not mine. It's a woman's problem. It's a black people problem. It's a poor people problem. I mean, how many of us in this room have colleagues and partners and friends from other races, sexes, religions? Show of hands. Well, then you know they want to break bread with you, right? They like you. Well, then this is their problem too. So when we're marching and protesting and posting about the Michael Brown Jr.'s and the Tatiana Jeffersons of the world, tell your friends to pull up. And so that's true to me. All of that's true. We all have friends, colleagues, partners, associates of different races, especially in social work, of different races, sexes, backgrounds, religions, and all that. We all like to laugh together, share stories, study together, work with our clients, helping them help themselves together, share stories about our families. We all get close because we work closely together. And we break bread with each other. We go to lunch together. We learn about grandkids and babies that are being born and engagements and weddings. And we are like family because we work together all the time and we're so closely together. So even if you're not friends, like I was talking about at the beginning, you are work friends or, friends on an associate kind of level. These are people that you care about. You may not talk to them about your personal life or, your childhood trauma and that kind of thing. But these are people that you grow to love and that you like. And so, speaking about Black people, because I know other races have injustices too. I'm not ignorant of that. But this, again, like I said, is due to current events and things that are going on and my perspective as a Black person. When we have all of these diverse people that we associate with and that we work with and that we break bread with and that we talk to and we share our lives with, when we have things that are affecting us, maybe it's not even directly. Like I said, I don't have racial things happening to me every day or almost every day, like hardly ever, But as a person that's Black, when I see these things happening, I do think, what if this is my brother? What if this was, my cousin? What if this is my dad? What if this is my sister? What if this is me? I do think that the silence is so loud from the people of different races who you see and communicate with on a regular basis when they don't say anything. And when they don't say anything to you in particular, as a friend, as a person, when they don't see what you are going through or what you could potentially go through. So, you just wonder what they're thinking. And I don't fault a lot of people for things. I don't blame anybody or try to make anybody feel bad or anything like that. But you wonder, and some of our allies and friends, they wonder what they can do. Some are very outspoken, and again, I'm mostly speaking about Black and white, even though we know it's inclusive of everybody, but I'm speaking about Black and white. Some of our white friends and white allies and our white associates are very vocal. They're very outspoken. They're very offended. They're very hurt, just like as a person too. All of us are people, and we try to separate race from being a human and that kind of thing, but it doesn't work because we know that this is real, it's happening. But, they're hurt just as much as we are. Some of them are. We know some of them are not, and they'll tell you, or they'll get caught telling somebody else on social media and they lose their jobs. But, some of us are hurt. Some of them are hurt. They care deeply about us, but sometimes some people don't know what to say. Some Black people don't know what to say. I've sat and wondered if people are wondering why I haven't posted anything on social media or said anything, and it's because I don't have anything. Like, I literally am exhausted of scrolling social media and seeing all this stuff, and it's like, what do you say? What can you do? It's almost hopeless. It's almost hopeless. But, you know, and that's why another reason why I decided to make this video, because me just posting on social media is not enough. I don't post about any social injustices on social media at all, ever in the past or anything like that, because I personally don't see what I get from doing that. I know other people do it and they get something from it, and that's great. I'm not saying that you shouldn't post or repost or whatever, because that's good to do. But for me personally, I don't know what that does for me. I know what I do day in and day out as a social worker, and as scrap social worker from it, as just a person to help other people. And to me, that's my part, is helping people, making videos like this to disperse out to the world and that kind of thing. So, my thing is telling me I'm running out of storage. Okay, but anyway, so let me hurry this video up. So what can we do as allies? So, like I said, most black people, especially, and I won't say most because I don't know most black people, but the black people that I know, we know that all white people are not bad. We know that our friends that are white don't think that all black people are bad. But we do sometimes wonder why there's silence. You know, we don't know why we don't hear from some of our friends. And so I started wondering and coming up with questions about this. And I'm like, you know, do they just not care? Because that could be true. You know, you can be friendly with people at work and amongst social circles and still not care. Are you happy that some of this stuff is happening? Excuse me, y'all, I'm congested. I have the fan going and try not to sound disgusting. But anyway, some people are happy that this stuff is going on, because some of our friends are racist, and that's just true. Most of them are not, I would venture to say, because we're not friends with people who we can pick up on that they might be racist. Are you afraid of being disowned by other white people? That's a real thing. I've had discussions with this about this with people. You know, is that a reason? Do you just not know what to say? That's real too. It's real for black people. Like I said, some of us just don't know what to say, and that's why we don't post. As a white person, do you not know what to say? Do you think that if you say something, it might be taken the wrong way? It might be taken offensively? Are you afraid? Do you feel like if you reach out to your friend, they're gonna brush you off? You know, so it's a number of different reasons, I think, why some of our friends are not saying anything. It could be that they don't care. They're happy that stuff like this goes on because they're racist. They don't want to be disowned. They don't know what to say. They're afraid of maybe your rejection. You know, and then, like I said, there are lots of outspoken white people that are friends or friends of friends or associates and stuff, and they tell you stuff. You know, they're at the protests. They are posting, you know, stuff on social media in support. They're liking and loving comments. They are commenting, you know, their support. So those are things I think that people can do just so we know that you see us, that you care, that you, because if you don't say anything, it's almost like you don't care. And I know that's not true for everybody. It's just some people just don't know what to say, or they're afraid, like I said. Share a post, share a meme, because social media is big for some people. Pull up, like Breonna said, at the protest. Pull up. You know, these protests and stuff are dangerous, though. So be careful. Like, go to the peaceful protests. Black and white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, all of us need to be careful with going to these protests, because they turn into dangerous situations from people who are not there for protesting. I've seen all kinds of stuff about people getting paid to go and do stuff, and undercover officers doing stuff to cause and provoke stuff. And I don't know if all this stuff is true, but you know, but like I said, I have some white friends that are just super vocal. They're super supportive, and they let you know. And actually, one of my really good white friends, Rachel, texted me yesterday, and I love Rachel so much. And Rachel is one of those people, the 5 people that I said, who's actually one of my friends that I talk to, and you know, we check in on each other, and she sends me pictures of her baby girl, because she doesn't post pictures on Facebook of her. She invited me to her baby shower and her wedding, and we worked together. And so she's a social worker too, and she actually was trying to host a discussion at her house a couple years ago when I worked at the police department, and I had another white colleague who worked there that I met that was real cool, and I liked her. We're not friends like that. We're social media friends, but we're not friends. Like, I don't talk to her outside of that, and she's moved on. I moved on from that job, and we don't talk, but we follow each other on social media. And so she was a really cool girl, and I invited her to go down to Rachel's house with me, but something ended up happening where she didn't have it. I think maybe she moved, or she had some problems with her pregnancy. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we didn't end up getting to go. But Rachel was going to host a race discussion at her house, and I thought that that was really good. And Rachel's married. She's white. She's married to a Hispanic man, and she voices, and Rachel and I have had discussions about the things that he goes through and that kind of thing. So, Rachel texted me yesterday, and she's so quirky and she's so awkward sometimes. But she texted me while I was driving from the park, and she was saying that she just wanted me to know how much she cares about me, and that she didn't care if the whole city burnt down, if I was murdered, and all this stuff. And we send our hearts to each other, little heart emojis and stuff like that. And it's just good that she reached out to me, even if she didn't know what to say, even if it was awkward, or if she didn't know if she said the right thing. Just the fact that she reached out to me, and I consider her one of my good friends. I was happy that she did that, because I know, that this is a person that I care about, and she cares about me. So another thing is language. So you will see comments on social media about people saying the blacks or Afro-American or coloreds or colored people and minorities and all that kind of stuff. And I made a Sunday social early on about what's in a name, and how it's important that we call our clients by their name, that we try our best to pronounce their names correctly. We spell and say their names correctly, and this is the same thing. So different people feel differently about this. African American is what I think is safe for most white people. I hear them say that most often is African American, but some black people just like to be called black. Like, you don't have to call us African American. To me, I'm black. I'm okay with being called African American, but I'm just black. I'm black. And there's different reasons for that I won't get into, but like, I'm black. When you see me, that's what I like to be referred to as. So when I check off boxes, I check off black. And they even have on these boxes on forms now, are you black/African American, depending on what you like to be called. I don't like to be called a minority. I don't like that word. I made that up in my mind a few years ago. I'm not a minority. I don't like the wording of it. A minority, to me, means that I'm less than or inferior to some other group of people, and I don't see myself that way. And so I don't call myself a minority. I try not to call other people minorities, even though that's been ingrained in us that we kind of just automatically say it. But I rather just call a person by what they are. A woman. Women are seen as minorities. I'm not minority just because I'm a woman. Black people are called minorities. Asian people are called minorities. Hispanic people are called minorities. Everybody is a minority unless you're white. And to me, that kind of separates us from them, and I don't like that. So I'm not a minority. I don't like being called that. And I also don't like being called people of or being grouped into that group of people of color, because I'm black. And when you talk about people of color, you're talking about blacks, Asians, Hispanics, and all of us are different people and different groups within those different categories. So I don't like to be lumped into all of that. So just call me black. That's my thoughts on that. I'm almost finished here. So, oh gosh, maybe I'm not almost finished, but other points that I wanted to make. So it's almost like coronavirus disappeared for me. I'm like, wait a minute, all this stuff is going on, kind of like push coronavirus out the way, and it's almost like, whoa, it doesn't even matter. It does matter, but in my mind, I'm like, whoa, now we have this race thing going on, and it's almost like coronavirus disappeared. Please be aware that coronavirus is still going on. We're still in a pandemic. We still have to be careful. We still need to stay home if possible, if you're sick and you have symptoms and that kind of stuff. You still need to wear your masks and still follow the CDC or the WHO or whoever's giving the accurate information. Let's see. I'm going to be seen as... that's another thing that I worried about as a black person in this profession, is whether or not I'm going to be seen as competent by white people. That's another thing that's real for me personally. I've thought about this. I've thought about when I open my private practice, I want my practice to be diverse. I want to have black clients, white clients, Asian clients. And this, as a social worker, is on me to be culturally competent so that I can serve those different populations. So I have that burden. But also, I wonder if I will be seen as competent to other, not just white people, but other different ethnicities and backgrounds and races and cultures. I wonder if I'm going to be seen as competent enough because I'm a black therapist. And so it's almost along those lines of you have to work twice as hard to prove that you're half as good as a black person, because it's like, as a black person, you can't be mediocre in the professional world. You have to be on top of your game. You can't make a mistake. In my mind, you can't make a mistake. You can't accidentally not know something or not be accurate. And that's why I like to do disclaimers, and I like to cite sources, and I like to give you information that's factual, because I'm not going to get on it, whether I was black or not. I'm not going to put my name on anything that's not legitimate information. But especially as a black person, a black woman, a black therapist in the future, after I get these hours done, I just wonder if people will see me as competent, because a lot of people don't think that black people are competent to do certain things. So that's something that's been on my mind. Another thing I wanted to address is the black on black crime that people love to go to. And what I say to that is, we know that there's black on black crime. We know that. That's obvious. That's apparent. We know that there's white on white crime. We know that there's the proximity, point of people tend to do things or harm people that are in close proximity to them, and most people live amongst people that are similar to them in race and socioeconomic status and class and that kind of thing. So we know about black on black crime. If you didn't know, black people are not okay with black on black crime. We know that it's an issue, and we are actively doing things about it. And it shouldn't just be that we are doing things about it, but it is our community, so yes. But other people from other races are doing things about black on black crime as well. There are tons of programs, nonprofits, different agencies, community members, United Ways, Big Brother, Big Sister, Boys and Girls Club. There are tons of different organizations that many people like you and I work in or have worked in or will work for, that are addressing the issues that cause black on black crime. The poverty, the lack of opportunities for affordable housing, the different reasons why certain people don't get certain jobs in certain places, the opportunity gaps, the education gaps, and all that kind of stuff. We know that black on black crime is an issue. We know that. We're actively working on that. I've worked for several agencies that do things, and it's not, oh, this agency works on black crime. We work on the issues that address the reasons why, the reasons why you have a group of people who are underemployed or unemployed, who live in subpar housing, who are crabs in a barrel trying to survive every day, who are having issues with other people of their same race, who are gang affiliated because they feel like they don't have a family because of whatever generational things that trickled down, and all of these things that are so much on a macro level that we don't think about and don't look at. We know that all of this stuff is happening, and we're addressing it in our communities. And it's not like, oh, black on black crime, so deal with all of this other stuff. No. I mean, people have to be smarter than that. You have to look around and see what's going on around you. I go to United Way meetings, or used to before pandemic, once a month, and in my community, and we would talk about all of these things and how we try to do these programs for these kids to give them better opportunities to help them defeat and combat all of these issues in the black community that cause black on black crime. So I don't want to hear about black on black crime when we talk about police brutality and police killings of black unarmed people. And, we also know and are not ignorant of the fact that police kill other races too. Very disproportionate numbers, I would think. And it's not stuff that's in the forefront. We know that there are white people that are killed by the police. I've seen a video of a white man being killed by the police begging for his life in the hallway of a hotel and was shot and killed. That affects me just as much as anybody else being killed by the police. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. And that's why I said it's not a black versus white thing. It's a systematic thing. It's an institutional thing. It's a macro thing. It's a policy thing. It's a thing that is law enforcement in America needs to be revamped, and trainings and qualifications. Like I said, I've worked at the police department. I've sat on the interview panel for potential police officers. I've seen, and my little bitty experience at the police department is pales in comparison to everything else. But just from my own experience, I've seen the kind of people that are being interviewed and potentially being police officers, and it's not pretty. And the interview process is not pretty. It's like they have a list of at this particular place, they had a list of questions, and they asked the question, the person answered, they wrote down the answer, and they went on to the next question. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was anxious. I'm like, can we go off of this paper and dig into this answer? Because this is not what I want to hear. I was a citizen. They asked me to come and be a citizen on the panel. And so that's why I was there. And I just got fed up after a couple of interviews. I was like, look, can I go off this paper and kind of dig a little bit into these people's... I tried to go with the flow because everybody else is just... This person would ask a question, they would answer, they would write down their answer, and then it was this person's turn to ask a question on the sheet. It was not good. Just trust me on that. Anyway, another thing that I saw was that it was a meme that I saw on social media or an article rather, that I didn't get the chance to read, but I saw it and it made me think. And it said that, we are not okay. Black people are not okay right now. When we go to work, we have to go and we're not okay. We have to go and put on a smile, and we still have to go and do our job, and we still have to be professional. But when you look at your colleague that's black right now during these times, these last couple weeks, some of us are not okay. Like, I had my rounding with my supervisor Friday, and she always asks how things are going and stuff. And I told her, things are just okay. And so she's a social worker too. And she's like, is it personal or is it something else? And I told her, all the stuff that's going on with these police killings and riots and stuff. And so she actually took the time out to talk with me about the things that are going on, the people in social media. Like here in South Carolina, there was a lady that had a post that worked for one of the hospital systems who said something racist, and people let that hospital system know what she said, and she was eventually fired. And so my supervisor knew this person or knew of that person, and we talked about that. So it's good to have a social worker as your supervisor, because we used to have a nurse as our social work supervisor who was not the social worker. And so it's good that you have that kind of ability in your workplace to talk to somebody about things that are going on in the world, because I can't effectively do my job if this is on my mind. But we are used to, as a people, not just black people, but as people in general, we're used to having to put on a smile when everything is not okay and still perform our jobs. There's people going through domestic violence. There's people going through family members being sick and ill and having to show up at work and still not smile. So that's one of the things you could add to the list. Family problems, divorce, domestic violence, family illnesses, and also being black in America while all of this stuff is going on, and having to see and watch people that look like your father or your brother or your sister get murdered on camera over and over again, because people keep sharing it to the point where you have to get off social media because it's traumatizing and we shouldn't have to see that. So some of us are not okay. Some of us are exhausted from seeing that. I have not seen the video. I don't want to see it. I've seen enough. When I saw the man that was shot at that store, I think it was 2015. I can't even remember who he was because so many different ones. But I saw this man get shot, and I saw his life end on video. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to get used to seeing that. He was struggling until he died. He was struggling to live in that moment. I don't want to see that. So that's another thing. Protect your peace. Limit your social media. Don't watch all of this stuff. Don't share it. Try to block people that share this stuff constantly. Don't look at any of it. That's my advice. Like, if you can't handle it, protect your mental health. Protect your peace. And then also, another thing, the song Changes by Tupac. If you hadn't heard Changes by Tupac, please listen to it. There's a lot of stuff intertwined in that song that deals with social issues, the black community, and just a lot. He talks about drugs, guns, policy, police killings, like all kinds of stuff. And if you listen to the lyrics of that song, I know a lot of us have heard it, but if you just listen to the lyrics or just read the lyrics, it's just a lot of stuff in that song just stood out to me. I was listening to it yesterday and I was going to talk about it, but we don't have time for it right now. And then lastly, what I wanted to say, hopefully we can end this at an hour and 30 minutes. What can we do as social workers? Now, we take apart all of the stuff that I just said, as personal as Ashley, as a black person, social workers, stuff like that. Separate from all of that, when we look at social work and what we can do and what we should be doing according to our code of ethics on the macro, meso, and micro level, we have to, on a micro level, I think we can, like I said, have these conversations, be open, whether you're black or white, be open to hearing the other side, be open to hearing other perspectives, be open to initiating the conversation, letting people know that this is not something to argue about, or this is not an argument, it's just a conversation, it's not a debate, it's just people coming together to discuss and understand and see how we can help. On a meso level, you can help plan protests, you can help volunteer, work in agencies, get to know different cultures, communities, cultural competence, which is what we are responsible to do as social workers. Do the research, understand, do on that meso level, which is in between the macro and the micro, which is like groups and organizations. Go into these places, see what work is being done, volunteer your time and your expertise, work in these places if you can't volunteer, and see what needs to be done. Like I said, United Way, Big Brother, Big Sister, Boys and Girls Club. There are a lot of different agencies on that meso level that are doing good work to kind of try to help combat all of this stuff with our community. On a macro level, of course, there is changing policies, procedures. Some people think of social workers as just case workers or therapists, where we are micro, we work one-on-one, but we also have macro level social workers that help create policy, that do the research, that share the research, that help make changes on a macro level. And that's what we can do. So when we think about the code of ethics, and hopefully my video won't cut, but when we think about the code of ethics, we look at one of our ethical principles is one of our values is social justice. And the ethical principle is social workers challenge social injustice. It says that social workers pursue social change, particularly with and on behalf of vulnerable and oppressed individuals and groups of people. Social workers Social workers' social change efforts are focused primarily on issues of poverty, unemployment, discrimination, and other forms of social injustice, which is all of what I just talked about. These activities seek to promote sensitivity to and knowledge about oppression and cultural and ethnic diversity. Social workers strive to ensure access to needed information, services, and resources, equality of opportunity, and meaningful participation in decision making for all people. So that's directly from our code of ethics, which is pretty much all that I just talked about. That's our duty, is to try to help combat the stuff that's going on a macro level, like the discrimination, unemployment, and that kind of thing. And then also, you can read on your own in the code of ethics from our ethical standards. Let's scroll down here. Let's see. Scroll. Okay. Hold on, y'all. Bear with me. It is point number 6. Social workers' ethical responsibilities to the broader society. And it talks about social welfare, public participation, public emergencies, social and political action. So make sure you read that. I'm not going to read it to you because I know y'all have access to the Code of Ethics too. But those are the things that it talks about. Fulfillment of basic human needs, and should promote social, economic, political, and cultural values and institutions that are compatible with the realization of social justice. So read all of that. I know this is a long video. Hopefully you've made it this far. And if you have made it this far, and if you're one of the people that's studying for the social work exam, if you let me know that you've made it this far to this video, the social work, the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series, yes, this is a business I'm going to plug, but is currently on special until tonight, May 31st, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for only $100. And then tomorrow, starting June 1st, it goes back to the regular rate of $175. But if you've made it this far in this video, let me know, and I will give you the 75-day access to the pre-recorded tutoring series for only $50. And that special is going to be good through the month of June. So, just as a ending of all of this, thank you for watching this. I would like for you to leave comments in the comment section. I will address the comments, and if I get enough, then I'll go live and discuss what your comments are on a live stream. But like I said, I wanted to make this pre-recorded because I wanted to not be distracted and get all my points out and make sure that I said everything how I wanted to say it. So please stay safe from coronavirus. Please stay safe and protect each other. Protect each other's mental health. Protect each other's freedom, if you can, in any way. Reach out to your friends, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. Reach out to your friends in this time and just check on them. Not just because of what's going on with this protesting and stuff, but just because that's what we should do anyway. We all live our lives and we all do things and we get so caught up in our own stuff. Check on your friends, especially with the pandemic going on. Check on your black friends with the these killings that continue and that have been going on for years and decades. It's nothing new, but it's at the forefront right now. And just be positive, be happy if you can. Share some happiness and some goodness. And as always, thank you for the work that you do as a social worker. And please try to get comfortable with discussing race if possible, discussing current events, and being tactful about it, but also letting your points be heard. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next video.